Hey everyone, my name is Lindsay Durand. I use she, her pronouns, and I am your Student Assembly Director of Communications. Today, we'll be talking about financial health and literacy, and I am excited to be joined by Alex Macielak from Laurel Road, who is a representative of the Financial Solutions Center and the Enrich platforms, and we'll be discussing those throughout the event. So I will give Alex the opportunity to introduce himself and tell us a little bit more about financial health and literacy.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks so much for having us. This has got to be the 10th or 15th session we've done for APTA students and members, and we've been working with the organization now for, I think it's 4 or 5 years. So I guess by way of quick background, I am the Director of Business Development at Laurel Road. I've been here about 7 years. I was the 4th employee at the company, so I've seen quite a bit of growth, for the company and in the student loan market generally, and that's really what we at Laurel Road focus on is providing student loan refinancing and student loan education to borrowers around the country, and specifically healthcare borrowers. So a large portion of all of our members, we call our borrowers members, do work in the healthcare field, and so we definitely specialize in that. And the basic idea is, we are refinancing people's student loans from, what's typically a higher federal loan rate, maybe 6.5% or 7%, down to something lower in the 4 or 5% range, and that difference in interest equates to oftentimes thousands of dollars in savings over the life of the loan, which I'll definitely go into some more detail on today.
Awesome. I just have a question to start off. What would be the main difference between working with members who are primarily in the healthcare field and members in, maybe a different line of work?
Yeah, there are in some cases preferential rates and terms available to those in the healthcare field. Whereas there's more of just baseline offerings if you were, working an administrative job or something like that. So I think, we very much recognize the intricacies of a healthcare career and have tried to tailor niche products to match those needs, really.
Great. So we'll go ahead and give you an opportunity. I know you have some slides prepared, so we'll go ahead and give you an opportunity to kind of talk through those and what students really need to know about loans, about repayments, and especially as it relates to COVID. And, that's kind of a big thing for me, and kind of I've been wanting to see the math for a while on how is all of this going to affect our student loans in the long term, especially.
Yeah, that's a great way to preface it all, and we can just jump right into the next slide, as that's really what we start out with here. So COVID, obviously, huge impact on the world overall, and student loans were no exception to that. So originally, as part of the first CARES Act last March, part of that was to place a holiday on federal student loan interest and payments. So if you have a federal student loan, you have not had to make payments, nor have you been charged interest since last March. Originally, that was due to expire last September, got extended through December, gets extended again through January, and then when President Biden took office, he extended it through the end of September 2021. So you will not have to make payments, which no student does. Federal student loans don't ask you to make payments while you're in school, but you would typically be charged interest during that time. You are not right now, in light of this CARES Act. So really valuable, especially for those who are pursuing loan forgiveness. These, quote unquote, months of $0 payments do count towards the 120 necessary to reach forgiveness. So you can effectively knock out 18 of your 120 payments, with $0 payments. So nice benefit there. The expectation is, yes, it's been extended a few times now. I think, there was probably a lot of optimism early on that COVID would be well under control last September and certainly by now, but obviously that hasn't been the case. But I think with the vaccine, becoming more widely distributed, should be available to every adult in the country by, purportedly this May, but certainly by next September. I think our expectation is that the interest and payment holiday does finally come to an end at the end of this September.
Unfortunately.
Makes sense. Yeah, and unfortunately, it is a pretty good deal.
Are there any cons to that? Like, are we expected to then have to pay more interest or have additional fees later on? Or is that totally just 100%?
No
catch there?
It's a good question, because normally there almost always is a catch with things like this where you're delaying payments. Usually, if you stop making payments, the loan is still accruing interest. So you'd have to consider the fact that you'd pay more at the end of the loan because of this, period of interest accrual. But that's not the case here. So because there's no interest accruing, you're just going to pick up right where you left off in terms of your payments. Your payoff date is going to be, 18 months later, because you took a 18-month vacation from paying down your loans, but it'll be at no additional cost to you. It's not like there's any extra interest on there because of this.
So if you have the money, if you want to put your stimulus check towards your loans, things like that, is that an option and then potentially decreases the cost overall?
Yeah, that's definitely a fine strategy. We've heard a lot of people looking to carry out. There's no reason not to pay down your loans right now. You're going to be on the hook for them at some point. So if you had some extra cash, for whatever reason, it's not a bad idea to put it towards the loan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Next slide here.
Yeah, so we thought it would be helpful for people to get kind of a side-by-side comparison of federal loan repayments, federal options versus what things were to look like if you were to refinance your loan. So we kind of broke it down here for a number of different categories, and I'll just kind of run through them. So repayment term, federal loans, you can get as long as a 30-year term. Laurel Road, we offer up to 20 years, but we do offer some shorter term options as well. So if you're someone who wants to pay it back really quickly, refinancing could be preferable. But if you want more time to pay the loan back, federal is going to give you a longer lifespan. Biggest difference between us and the federal loans is the interest rate. Ours is, excuse me, ours is based on your credit worthiness. So that's your FICO score, your total debt, and your total income. All of those get taken into account of what rate we offer you. Whereas the federal loans, everybody's going to get the same rate for that given year. So no variability at all. But that's how we're able to offer these low rates, is by underwriting and only giving them to people who've graduated and obtained a good job. Big thing you're giving up by refinancing a federal loan is the ability to pursue loan forgiveness and utilize income-driven repayment. So if either of those things, and those are great programs for sure, if either of those are attractive to you, you wouldn't want to refinance your federal loan into a private loan, because you can't go back once you've moved federal to private. Length of forbearance, we will offer up to 12 months, although we are offering an extra 6 months now in light of COVID. But federal loans have up to 36 months. So just, think in general, federal loans are going to be a little bit more flexible, but they're going to have a higher interest rate. So that's the trade-off, is, you're giving up some of those federal flexibilities to secure a lower rate by refinancing. Another factor to consider, in-school deferment is offered on federal loans. It's not offered by us. So if you were to go back to school, federal loans, you can stop making payments on everything you'd borrowed up to that point. A loan with Laurel Road, you can forbear it for up to a year, but can't go into full in-school deferment like with a federal. Next slide, please. So another just, area where we're a little bit less flexible is the time to default. Federal loans give you 270 days. We give you 90. So, again, a little less flexible. And then the really big factor right now, obviously this is not going to be here forever, but through the end of September, the thing you need to keep in mind, your federal loans, there's no interest, no payments. That's not the case with Laurel Road. So while the rate that we write on your loan is going to be lower than what's written on your federal loan, we don't have this, 0% interest, $0 payment holiday in effect through September. So just keep that in mind. You might be locking in a really low rate right now, which a lot of people still are. You're just going to give up that, next, what is it now, 5 months of $0 payments. And then the rest of the items on here are ways that we are the same as federal loans. And we've tried to mirror their programs as much as we can. So same grace period, still discharged in death or disability, still eligible for the federal student loan interest tax deduction, still reported as a student loan on your credit report, and same interest capitalization schedule as well. So, a fair amount of ways that we are the same, but a lot of dissimilarities as well that, people need to consider when determining, do you want to use those federal programs, maybe see if you can have something forgiven, or, do you want to try and pay back the loan, with as little interest as possible? Those are kind of the two contrasting strategies. Next slide, please. So a little bit more on Laurel Road and our benefits, that we're able to offer APTA members. I think first and foremost to call out is the extra rate discount that members get when you refinance your loans with Laurel Road. So, if you came to us off the street without being a member and we were going to give you 4.5%, well, because you are a member of the APTA, we'll knock an extra quarter point off of that. So you'll be down to 4.25. So it might not seem like that much, but when you owe 6 figures in a lot of cases, another quarter point off your rate can easily save you, an additional $2,000 or $3,000 over the life of the loan. A few other benefits working with us. We will honor your grace periods. You don't need to start making payments right after graduation. You can wait up to 12 months thereafter. Nor do we charge any fees whatsoever. So there's not unlike a mortgage refi where there's closing costs and application fees, we don't have any of that. We will pay off exactly what you owe. We'll give you a new loan for that same exact amount. I mentioned the savings. I mean, just to give you like an illustrative example, someone who owed $200,000, to use a round number, and had a 7% interest rate, if you were able to drop that to like 4.5% and you were going to pay the loan back, call it over 15 years, you're probably saving somewhere between $17,000 and $20,000 in interest in light of that lower rate. Next slide, please. So this was the last one I put on here, and then obviously happy to go into plenty of questions, but I get asked all the time, like, when is the best time to refinance? There's no right or wrong answer. It's different for everybody. I think, worth keeping in mind, though, the interest rate environment overall. Right now, we are in a historically low interest rate environment, near 0% on the 10-year Treasury. So it's a good time to look into it. I mean, certainly if you have private loans that aren't eligible for any of that CARES Act holiday, no better time to refinance. On the federal side, there's some complicators right now, but as we get closer to September, an excellent time to lock in a low rate for the remaining life of your loan, as this payment and interest holiday comes to an end. Next slide. I think there might be one more slide, so, folks have questions, you want to discuss your personal situation, you can certainly contact us at the information shown here. I know, Lindsay, you've got some more questions, which we'll cover today. But I think if there's one takeaway at the end of the session, it's understand there's plenty of options out there, especially as a healthcare practitioner. So do your research, figure out your optimal repayment strategy, and be prepared to capture the savings opportunities that are out there now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex.
Sure.
Like you said, I have still a couple questions, so I'd love for you to answer them, kind of give your 2 cents. You may not have the answers to everything, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. So there's a lot of students, especially PT students, who are coming in and they're looking at this cost of PT school plus undergrad. And like you mentioned, maybe it's $200,000 total. what do you think students need to know before taking out these loans, before kind of making this big financial decision?
Yeah, I mean, you started it off right there. You're making a career and financial decision, and it might not be what everybody wants to hear, but it's not solely about, what you are envisioning your career to be. Like, there is a financial component to it, and need to keep in mind that for most people, becoming a healthcare professional, whether it be a PT, a PA, a physician, a nurse, it's not solely just about the role. Like, there's a financial component that goes into it, and for most people, you're not going to have that covered unless there was a parent who was going to help you, or you were lucky enough to get a scholarship. Like, it is a requisite to take out a significant amount of debt to get an education in the world that we live in. So, at a minimum, do a quick search, expected debt for whatever degree you're planning on pursuing. Obviously, you'll know from the school that you're talking to what they charge. But I think similarly, know what to expect on the back end. Like know what you're likely going to be paid in your first couple of years, and have a plan on how you're going to manage that debt in light of the income.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it is a big financial decision. And there's definitely a lot of conversation around the topic of student debt and how do we manage this as a profession. Because unfortunately, PTs in a lot of settings don't get paid nearly enough to really like offset those costs of loans. 10, 20 years down the road, a lot of people are still paying them off.
Sure.
On average, like, how long, and I'm sure this varies, but how long does it take the average healthcare worker to pay off their student loans?
It's a good question. Varies widely by what type of healthcare worker you are. The other factor is, like, the data is still evolving, right? Like, even 15 years ago, the total debt outstanding in the country was like a quarter of what it is right now. So people graduating today, even recent predecessors, you have significantly more debt than they would have had. So I think if you're a PT with 150 to 200,000 in student loans, and you're coming out making 60, 70, $80,000 a year in your first couple of years, it's going to be difficult to make a dent in that right away. So I would expect, it's probably taking, all of 15 plus years to retire that debt, depending on, all the specificities of your particular situation. Not a bad strategy for a lot of folks, a lot of PTs, is to pursue like a long-term forgiveness through pay as you earn, for example, where if you pay for 20 years based on your income, they forgive whatever's remaining. And I would definitely keep a close eye on all the legislative changes. They're always talking about changing these federal repayment options. Certainly with the current administration, probably should be to your benefit. So just monitor that. Those federal programs can be really attractive if your debt far exceeds your income.
Yeah, and I think a lot more programs are appearing for physical therapists specifically. So it is something to consider, because it can tackle a large amount of those loans. What I guess, and I'm sure we have a lot more information on the Financial Solutions Center and within other APTA resources, but what do you recommend for students who are coming out of school, who are trying to tackle these debts? Like, what are the best ways to kind of handle that and pay them off?
I think a really logical, good first step is to make sure you know what you owe, especially on the student loan side. Check out NSLDS. That's going to house all of your federal student loans. Your credit report should pick up any private student loans that weren't included on the NSLDS. And then, even outside of student loans, like, know every credit card debt that you have, your auto loan. I'm sure you probably have a closer handle on a mortgage if you owed one. But get all of that aggregated into one place. Balance, interest rate, monthly payment, and then start to put together a debt repayment strategy. from an economic standpoint, your most efficient way to pay down debt is to, put any overpayment you can towards the highest interest rate first. So that, probably is a good first effort, is to see what you're paying, determine if you have extra funds each month that you can allocate to the debt. If you do, put that towards the highest interest rate loan you have.
Yeah, I think that's a really good strategy. And I think people get caught up too. They don't realize like you have to pay off all of the interest before you actually pay for the loan.
Yeah, no, I think that's a misconception. People are always thinking that. It's more so with mortgages than anything else, where
Okay.
you're paying more interest up front. But even with those, I mean, you just think of the way a loan functions. Any loan is going to start out large, say at the beginning, it's going to be bigger than what it is at the end. And this is how it works for student loans anyway. You're accruing interest on whatever the balance is for that month. So if your balance, the first month is $200,000 and your interest rate is 5%, you accrue on that 200,000 at 5%. So that's 5% of 200,000 divided by 12. That's the monthly interest. But when get to year 15, the balance now isn't 200,000, it's 20,000. And so the interest you're accruing in those months are lower. And so therefore, more of your payment is hitting the balance. That's just naturally the way paying down a typical loan is going to work, is there's more interest up front because the balance is bigger. It's not like we front load the loans with interest.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you kind of hinted at this, like there's not necessarily a great time, or there's not ever a perfect time to refinance, but do you have any suggestions on when students should consider refinancing?
I think, you said it well, like there's no perfect time. You're never going to know you're picking the exact moment to refinance when the rates are the lowest they'll ever be. But if you remove that component, like think about it within your financial context. We went through all of those similarities and differences with federal loans. You need to be in a financially secure place where you're fine giving up some of those federal flexibilities. And so that, I think, is the most important indicator, that it's a good time to look to refinance, is when you have an emergency savings account in place, you're comfortable making your full monthly debt payments, and you're just focused on paying back the loan as economically as possible. That's when you should, really look into refinancing. Not so much when you come out of school, you're still overwhelmed, you aren't able to make a full monthly debt payment. You'd want to hold off till you're a bit more financially secure.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And those are some great things to keep in mind. I don't think I have any more questions for you. Did you have any final statements, anything else you wanted to add, anything we didn't touch on?
I would just say, I think, at least what I've seen, especially amongst like graduating classes, a lot of times there'll be some group think where one person who's perceived to be like financially astute says, well, this is the best way to pay down your loans. There's no one size fits all approach to debt repayment overall. And certainly for student loans, I mean, there's more intricacies in student loan repayment than any other type of debt with the federal programs that are out there. So, figure out your optimal repayment strategy within the context of your greater financial picture. So, for that one person, maybe it's you want to pay down your loans in 7 years, but maybe another person says, well, I prioritize buying a home or, buying into a practice. And so I'd rather save my money for that, big event. And maybe they want to minimize their student loan payments. So there's not one right way to go about paying down the loan, but you just need to keep in mind your personal preferences, goals when figuring out your strategy. Yeah.
And I think that's great advice too, because I mean, so often we get stuck in this mindset, like just pay off the loan, do whatever it takes,
right,
to sacrifice everything. And, that's probably not the best solution for everyone.
No.
I mean, maybe not even the majority of people.
No.
So to hear that, there's a lot of different ways to do it, that you need to take into consideration your personal preferences, where you want to work, if you want to have a family, if you want a house, like there's a lot of things to take into consideration. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I think that is all we have for today. I'll just finish off with a couple announcements that we have. Thank you again, Alex, for joining us. Today, we'll be talking with Kevin Soehner from Enrich on financial health and literacy. Kevin is a representative of the Financial Solutions Center, a fantastic resource available to APTA members, which we'll be discussing throughout the event. So Kevin, if you'd like to give us an introduction, we'd love to know more about you and kind of what your role is within Enrich.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay. My name is Kevin Soehner. I'm Vice President of Operations for Enrich. Enrich is a product of the company iGrad. iGrad's been around for over a decade. We got our start doing financial wellness education with colleges and universities across the country, and that grew in the last 6 to 8 years to expand into the post-school environment. A lot of employers, organizations such as the APTA and others have seen the value and the need to provide these types of resources to their employees and membership. My team oversees everything on the back end. So end user support, like how to navigate the site, how to get around. If you have questions about, I'm looking for an article on such and such and I can't find it. My teams handle all of that kind of support, which you typically access through the web chat function on the platform. And then we also have a financial wellness center, which is certified financial coaches that I oversee that group, make sure that they're up to date on their trainings, and we handle kind of call reviews with them and make sure that they're doing a great job. APTA members have the opportunity to call in and talk to coaches about financial questions in addition to accessing the platform. So all those back-end support groups that support the APTA members in their financial education endeavors fall under my umbrella.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about Enrich and what your goal is ultimately, but why is it important to have financial literacy? Like what are you hoping APTA members gain out of this platform and working with Enrich?
Well, our company is all about education and empowerment through education. There's opportunities out there for people that are engaging with their finances to seek out professionals that might take more of an advisory role. You might have a tax professional, you might have an investment advisor. In those environments, those individuals will often make the decisions for you. And what we want to do is we want to make you feel comfortable making decisions on your own, or at the very least, if you do want to engage that level of a professional, that you feel confident that you understand what they're recommending that you do, rather than just kind of blindly following someone's advice and crossing your fingers and hoping that they have your best interest at heart. Empowerment through education is really trying to focus on alleviating the stress that's associated with money. A lot of studies have been done in the last 10 years that have identified the number one cause of stress across the U.S. adult population is finance related. And there have been a lot of studies that have correlated the transition of that mental stress becoming physical stress and physical ailments. So it really is part of your whole body wellness. If you can be educated and comfortable and confident with your finances and the financial decisions you're making, you can alleviate the stress and positively affect your entire life, not just your checkbook.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of people tuning into this conversation who are kind of looking at their debts, their loans that they've taken out to go to PT school or become a PTA, and it is a bit overwhelming to kind of see that number and wonder how you're going to get out of it. What recommendations do you have for students who are entering the field of physical therapy, or maybe who have gone through it, on starting to tackle and manage that debt?
Well, the first thing is you got to know where you are before you know where you're going. And a lot of people fail to kind of build that initial foundation of doing a proper budget and a proper analysis of their whole financial picture. And that's not just about where you are right now. It's you have your debts, but you also have your future goals. So someone who lives in New York City and has no need for a car doesn't need to factor in the saving up for that car payment or saving up for that auto insurance and things of that nature. Whereas somebody that lives in a more rural area with no public transportation might absolutely have to have a car. You might have somebody who knows, I'm in a relationship and I'm planning on getting married and I want a big wedding. And somebody else might say, even if I do get married, I don't want a big wedding. I want that money to go towards a house. So you need to be looking at the big picture in the future, as well as what is now. What are my debts? Specifically with the PT career, some people want to go on the entrepreneurial path, and they might want to be opening up their own practice and things of that nature that has completely different kind of long-term planning, where other people want to work for a certain organization or a certain company, where they're going to have different financial obligations in the future. So that's absolutely step number one. And things are going to change. Like you don't have to have it all worked out and know exactly what your life plan is. But the things that you do know should be factored into your overall equation. If you've got some big things that you need to be saving for, you have a different strategy in terms of the balance of saving versus paying down debt. The other piece that you want to understand is that introspective look of yourself. When we talk about debt management, there's kind of like mathematical strategies and psychological strategies, and it has to do with your personality. There's some that are proven, just run the numbers. If you do it this way, your debt will be gone faster than if you do it a different method. But some of the other methods are more kind of like emotionally engaging, because there's more quote unquote like reward periods where all of a sudden you've hit a milestone of cutting that debt down or eliminating some of your debt, and that can be the motivator to keep you focused and keep you on. So there's two-pronged approach. Number one, make sure that you understand the big picture. You have all of your current needs and your future plans kind of as part of your strategy, and then understand what really motivates you and is going to keep you on track with your plan. Like they say with diets, like the best diet is the one you stick to. It's the same concept with financial plan. It's if you set a plan because you think it's the right thing to do and it's just completely disinteresting to you and it's kind of like counterproductive to your motivation and you don't end up following it, then that wasn't the right plan for you.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of really good points there, especially in terms of the personalization needed in finances and budgeting and figuring out how you're going to pay off those loans or how you're going to budget your salary. I just recently got my first job in PT, so I start in a couple months here. And so I've been trying to figure out my budget, like, well, what can I afford for housing? How much am I going to be able to save? I'm going to have to budget all these other things that traditionally I haven't had to do as much. And so I'm learning, okay, there's certain things that I'm willing to budget for or spend for. And I also want to save. And so you really do have to take this personalized approach and look at what is going to be best for you in the long term. So I've kind of looked through the Financial Solutions Center a little bit and on the Enrich platform, and it is very personalized in terms of what your options are, what the recommendations are. But can you kind of walk us through what is available on there, how students or even practicing clinicians might be able to make the most of this platform?
Absolutely. And we can actually jump to the screen. I can walk you through and kind of show some of the nice features. So one of the best parts about the platform is that it is fully integrated with your APTA account. So I'm on the site right now, and if I come in and I click on sign up or log in, it's automatically going to take me and it's going to have this pop up. And rather than having to come up with just yet another username and password to remember, you simply click on the login with APTA. This is going to run you over to the APTA site. I'm already logged in on another tab. So normally you would see and you would put in your credentials on the APTA site, and then it's going to kick you right back to us. So you don't have to navigate around the APTA platform and find a link. You can come directly to your enrich.apta.org site, or you can come through the Solution Center links that are there. Well, when you get here, you'll notice that I'm welcomed into the platform and it tells me kind of what's going to happen. So to get started, we're going to start with a financial checkup, and that's a process. I'm not going to take you through the whole thing because it takes a couple of minutes to get through. I'll just show you a little sample. But we ask you questions to understand your goals, your objectives, what's causing you stress, kind of get a feel for where you are in your financial journey. Then the system's going to be able to provide you with recommendations. We are a very holistic financial wellness platform. We cover all ends of the spectrum because it all depends on who you are and where you are at in your journey of what you might need. And we don't want to have any gaps where you need something, we just don't have any content on it. So if you dive into our content, it might feel overwhelming, but it doesn't necessarily all apply to you right now. And that's where this flow and these recommendations really help, because it helps you narrow your focus. It's like going and looking at an entire encyclopedia on an old library wall. I might be giving away my age here, but you've got 100 thick books and there's a ton of information in there. How do you find what you need? That's kind of what this concept is we want everything available in that big collection of thick books on the library wall, and your recommendations will point you where you need to go. The second piece, and this really kind of circles back to what I was mentioning about understanding about yourself, is we have a proprietary tool that we worked with PhD behavioral economists on to help you take a real quick kind of questionnaire, and we are going to help you understand your money personality, what motivates the decisions that you make as it comes to your finances. And we have some goal planning and kind of budget tracking so that you can kind of stay on track with the goals that you're looking to receive. And also that financial counseling. We do have our certified personal finance counselors that can have coaching sessions with you when you want that personal touch. Some conversations or some topics are just easier to chat through with someone as opposed to relying solely on the platform. So we give you both options so that you can learn based on whatever your preference might be. So now when I jump into my checkup, it starts asking me some questions. So first thing we put in is our birthday. This is going to help us in terms of all of your kind of future kind of time boxing. There's lots of things that we talk about, like the future value of money. When you talk about saving, it's never too little to save and never too early to start. It has to do with all the exponential growth and the power of interest over time. So a lot of our tools are going to kind of show you, well, based on your targeted retirement age, this is how much you should be saving now, all that kind of stuff. So we gather your date of birth for that. We have a lot of different content in the platform that revolves around your career, because your career is where you make the money that you then have to manage. So it does kind of tie in together. So you will see some questions about career-based resources. We have also integrated a lot of great APTA resources directly into the platform that can be recommended to you as well. We ask you what your stress level is currently, and then you're going to tell us what are the things that are causing your stress. Okay, so you pick your options and you continue. And it goes on like this it's probably roughly 5 minutes. The average user is going to go through anywhere from 18 to 25 questions. Some of them they're dynamic. So some of them are, if you answer a question one way, you'll get a new set of questions that are follow-ups. But the power of that is you now are going to have recommendations. So when I go to my courses, the courses that would be recommended to me based on my answers to those questions will have a recommendation flag. And if I had completed the entire process, above my Your Report section here, I would have an entire dedicated block that is my most powerful recommendations, the things that the algorithms are scoring as the most important thing for me to jump into right now. The second piece of that is, if I've completed all my recommendation, or if I've completed the process so that I can get my recommendations, I have a dedicated recommendations section that is accessible when you're browsing all of the topics. You have this all recommendations in the upper right-hand corner if you want to dive into the stuff that's picked just for you. And in addition to providing 5 or 6 of your top recommendations, you'll see things that are contextual recommendations. So in my checkup, I answered that student loans were causing me stress. So my contextual recommendations, I might have a strip of content that says, because you're currently stressed out about your student loans, and it might be articles about tips on student loan repayment or loan forgiveness programs and things of that nature. If I had gone through the whole process, some of the questions ask things like, how frequently are you budgeting? And if I said never, then I might have a strip of recommendations that say, because you're never budgeting, here's all of our budgeting tools. So it's really going to present content, not just presenting it to you based off of what it learns about you, but it's actually going to give you a little context so you know, because I answered this question this way, here's some stuff that will help me reach that. If I say one of my goals is to save for vacation, you might see a feed that here's our vacation tips. And so it really helps you narrow down that content to what's going to be most meaningful to you. We also have a really cool search function. So when you aren't going off the recommendations, if you want to just see what's everybody else engaging with, you can come in here and you'll notice that there's headings of popular courses, popular tools, popular content, and popular topics. This is all AI driven, meaning that it's going to adjust in real time. So if you were to come back in a couple of weeks or sometimes even in a couple hours, some of these things are going to shift around based on what's being used the most. Now, to be transparent, the number one tool being money personality and the number two tool being the budget, that's probably not going to change. That's pretty consistent across all of our user bases. But which courses are the most popular right now? Those are going to kind of rotate as people kind of engage in different points of the year. The popular content, this is going to be the stuff that rotates the most because this is your individual articles and videos. And then similarly with topics. It is kind of interesting that you can see the APTA membership is pretty focused on student loans. The most popular topics right now are repaying student loans, understanding just more about federal student loans, and then smart borrowing in general. So you've obviously got your APTA students that still have some funding to take care of. So they're making sure that they're doing that in smart ways. And then you've got a lot of those that are in that repayment period. So a lot of that content is very popular. If you know what you're looking for, so if you were looking for debt pay down, you type in the word debt and it's going to immediately give you some results based off of the different categories. As I mentioned earlier with how we have the platform, and we also have a phone number to call in and talk to coaches because people like to engage differently. The platform goes even deeper because some people just want to read a quick article. Some people want to watch a video. Some people want to go browse an entire topic section to see what there is. Some people want to get interactive with a tool. And a lot of people really like the coursework because it is like a course in school, much shorter. Ours take 15 to 20 minutes. But it is that kind of guided tour of we're going to give you a little information. We're going to quiz you on it, make sure you understand it. And it's the courses are really fun because it's a combination of written content, like articles, short form articles that you can go through, some infographics to kind of help you visualize. There's lots of video content to kind of really keep it engaging. We have polls to make it interactive, questions to make sure you're paying attention, and a lot of interactive functionality, especially when you get to student loans. You can actually upload your student loan profile. It'll break down all the federal repayment programs, help you compare and contrast public student loan forgiveness, which I know that comes up a lot when we're talking to APTA members, and even refinancing. And the real cool thing about the courses and tools is you don't need to know what paths you're going down with all that. We have one student loan analysis tool that current students that are about to enter repayment, and professionals that have been in repayment for 5, 6, 10 years, they're all starting off at the same point. And as you answer questions and enter information, the tool is going to adapt to what information you need to get out of it.
Yeah, I think this Financial Solutions Center is, it's such a great resource. Like going through it myself, by the way, it probably took me, 10 minutes total to do what is it called again? The
financial wellness checkup.
Yeah, the financial wellness checkup. And I was a little bit disappointed that I got a poor score at the end of it. And so obviously I have some work to do, but you're right. It gave me videos and recommendations on content I could cover that I was very interested in. It's almost like you get on and you're like, oh, this is like watching Netflix almost, because you're like, these are all things I really want to learn about and figure out and navigate better just for myself. I feel like I've kind of been that person that's like always trying to learn more about finances, learn more about how to make smart financial decisions, just because I realized that debt is such a big issue. And, the payoff in the physical therapy profession is not fantastic. So you really do have to be kind of smart with your money. But going through the Financial Solutions Center myself and seeing what all is available, I was very impressed. And I wish I would have learned about it my first year of PT school. And not, the end of my third year. It would have been a great tool to have 2 years ago.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up like the payoff, so to speak, of the PT career. There was an interesting conference that we were in attendance on a few years back, and there was a speaker who was talking about a study that they did nationwide around net worth. And net worth is the value of everything you have. So it's kind of like your budget, but at a bigger scale, the value of all of your assets minus all of your liabilities. And contrary to popular belief, it is, in their study nationwide, the strongest net worth was in the annual income band of $40,000 to $43,000 per year. And what they found out with this study was the more you make, you tend to get less focused on good habits. Which it was as a whole, obviously, everybody's different, everybody's individual, but it's very interesting to see that it's not just about making the most money. It's making the most of the money that you have. And if you have good habits and you understand strategies, your long-term success financially can be far, far greater than basing it off of the actual income that you have coming in. I know personally, today versus a couple years back when I was making less money, I definitely eat out more now than I did back then. And is that, am I saving differently? Am I saving at a greater rate? Probably not, because I make more money because I'm later in my career and I end up just doing more fun things. And then you got to look back and say, oh, okay, wait, now I need to slow this down. I need to be smarter. I've got more money coming in than I did in the past. Let's make sure that that's actually being a benefit and it doesn't just all turn into disposable income.
Absolutely. And I think some of the best advice I've ever gotten is, just because you make more money doesn't mean your expenses need to increase.
Exactly.
Like if you can keep your expenses the same, as you increase your income, put more of that money towards investments, put more of that money towards savings. And, that's the advice that I've had. So I've been lucky at least to kind of have that perspective. Whether I followed through on that or not is a different question. But I have had that perspective as you increase in what you make. Your expenses don't have to necessarily increase. You can kind of maintain a humble lifestyle that doesn't cost a ton of money. And
that's actually a great segue. If we can jump back to the site, I can show you one of the key components of our budgeting tool. So typically when you hear about budgeting, the basic definition, which is on our site as well, because it's kind of like the Webster's definition, is your income minus your expenses. And that's the base concept. But you'll notice that in our tool, we have your income and your expenses, and then sandwiched in the middle, we have savings and goals, because we want to incorporate that in. And the negative isn't because it's a negative thing to do. It just means that it's money that is not available for you to spend. So if you think about, let's say, and I'm just going to put in some numbers to show here, if I've got $5,000 in income and $5,000 in expenses, right now my balance is my budget is balanced, and you now have that new income. Okay, so you get a raise and now your income goes up, and now what the tool is going to do is the tool is going to calculate, and it's going to say that there's an extra $1,600 that's available because your income went up but your expenses haven't changed. And to your point, where you shouldn't just go out and increase the expenses, you shouldn't be coming down to the transportation section and adding a car payment. What you want to do ideally here is come into something like the emergency fund, and you can create this and say, I currently have nothing saved for my emergency fund, but I want to have $5,000 saved, and I want to do that by January of next year. Okay. So I put that in, and it's going to tell me what do I need to be doing in order to achieve that goal. And I'm like, okay, that number seems realistic because I've got $1,600 in surplus. Boom. Now I've got that listed, and now it's taking it away from that. And I can do that with all of these different goals, and I can edit these. So we just threw in a couple of examples as defaults, but the tool is editable. So you can change the labels on here. So I come into this one and I can say, oh, well, I'm not actually saving for a new car. This is going to be investment. I currently have nothing, and I want to have $5,000 in there. It's the same thing by next year. And so now I can put all these strategies, and I can make smart decisions with that surplus. And I have the visual aid to help me manage that. And we put the goals right up there at the top to really keep your focus on that. Saving is something that a lot of people forget to include in their budget.
Again, this is like the most perfect tool as I'm looking to, buy a house or figure out if I'm going to rent. I'm graduating with this new salary and stuff. I've been wanting to make a more robust budget and kind of figure out where am I going to put all of this money. I've been kind of doing the math in my head, but I'm excited to go put my budget in and see where I can best spend and put my money coming up in the next year. This is again, maybe I'm just too excited about it because it fits what I was needing in my financial wellness plan. But I really like this resource and what they have to offer. Are there any other perks or benefits that you think would really benefit students on the Financial Solutions Center?
Yeah, no, I think there's a multi-pronged approach that the APTA takes. We're the education arm, and then there's some other kind of partnerships that the APTA has in order to kind of take your learning and turn it into action. We do have some of those partnerships and resources kind of connected through the platform, so you can see. If you go to the topics page, there's some banners that will have headings of articles and videos that are they're very transparent that it's APTA specific content. So jumping to the APTA Learning Center, the Career Center. So anytime you see one of the articles or videos, and they'll show up in various different places on the platform, you'll see these. We refer to them as like a call to action. It's taking you to specific stuff that's not just the core educational content of our platform. And then of course there's stuff that you can access directly through the APTA site itself when you're in that money management center. One of the ones that I know pretty familiar is Laurel Road. A lot of questions come up, especially our coaches right now. They're getting tons of questions about, what do I do with my student loans and refinancing because of the pandemic and the moratorium on interest rates, and how does that all impact? So there's a lot of questions that are coming out right now. But the great news is that you have a great partner with Laurel Road, where while they have a great platform and they have a great product, they are always looking out for the student's best interest or the borrower's best interest as well. And they're going to tell you, no, you don't. It would not be smart for you to refinance right now because you're going to start paying interest right away. Let's schedule an appointment. The latest date that they've pushed back interest to is X, and let's schedule a follow-up call then. So they've got some great material specific to the refinance process and the student loan repayment management, and how you can kind of evaluate your options there a little bit deeper, because it'll weigh in what you might qualify for with their products and services. So yeah, the APTA's got lots of great options, a lot of great benefits. The biggest thing is utilize them. The one thing I can tell you is with all of our partnerships, whether it's with a college directly or an organization like the APTA, those that utilize the resources, we get feedback all the time about the great things that they get out of it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that when we reach out to try and say, hey, you're part of the eligible population, but we're not showing you utilizing it. A lot of times the response we get is, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. So one of the things with the APTA, it's like a good problem to have, is when you have an organization that provides so many great things to its members, sometimes you're not aware of all of the great things that are available to you. So this is a great resource that is provided by the APTA, and you can get a heck of a lot out of it. That we like to joke, because it is financial based, that if you make one really good financial decision as the result of the education, it's going to far outweigh the cost of your APTA membership, not to mention all the other amazing benefits you get from your APTA membership. But it can really be a game changer, especially when you're talking about early in your career and just getting into that repayment period.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think my understanding is the Financial Solutions Center and all of this came about as a response to students within APTA asking for more resources, asking for more financial literacy. And so, this is a direct response in what APTA is doing to kind of bridge that gap and give students and professionals, the opportunity to feel empowered in their financial decisions. And kind of like you mentioned earlier, not just blindly accept guidance or advice from someone who maybe doesn't have their best interests in in mind. So I really suggest to all of the students or practicing clinicians, anyone who is an APTA member who's watching this, to go check out the Financial Solutions Center. Go to apta.org. All you have to do is type in Financial Solutions Center, and all of that will pop right up, take you over to the Enrich site, and you can get started on this. I think this is a fantastic resource. We've kind of shown you how to utilize it a little bit, but it goes way more in depth than what we were able to show you in this short amount of time. Kevin, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Anything else that you feel is important for students to know?
No, just one of the things when you're on the site, there's a little bubble in the bottom right-hand corner that is a easy access to the web chat. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you to get the answers to your questions. We think we've done a pretty good job making the platform intuitive to navigate, and the personalization engine that we showed you on how to get to the stuff that's going to be most meaningful for you, and being able to use our search functionality. But we have real live humans that are available for you as well. So don't hesitate to use the chat, call into the coaches, and just get answers to your questions. One of the reasons why financial wellness is been getting asked for and has been such a need is, for a big period of time, talking about money was taboo in this country, and it got a lot of people into bad habits because nobody talked about it. So how are you supposed to learn how to do things right when nobody's talking about something? So let's reverse that mindset, and let's talk to each other. Let's help each other forward, and make sure that you don't have unanswered questions when you're trying to make those decisions.
I love that. I think giving people the education and the knowledge and really empowering them, I mean, that's part of what physical therapists do as well, in treating injuries and helping people improve their quality of life and function. So it's cool to see this in a financial platform as well. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us again today. If anyone has any questions, feel free to comment below. We'd love to continue this conversation on financial health and literacy. And of course, be sure to check out the Financial Solutions Center. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.